Welcome to the Find Your Voice, Change Your Life podcast with psychologist Dr. Doreen Downing. Listen in as Doreen interviews people who felt they didn't have a voice or who suffered extreme speaking anxiety. You'll hear stories about how they struggled to speak up, what they did to find their authentic voice, and the confidence they now feel to speak up and make an impact. If you want to get started right away to find your voice, download Doreen's free 7-step guide to fearless speaking at doreen7steps.com. And now, here is Doreen.
Hi, I'm Dr. Doreen Downing, and I'm the host of the Find Your Voice, Change Your Life podcast. I like to invite guests who have had some kind of history around finding their voice, whether it was a struggle early in childhood or whether something happened along the way. You know, there's always something that goes on when you're trying to get along with other youngsters early on in school. You know, there's sometimes bullying or competition, and then you move into high school and then finally out into the work world or some world. I don't know. That's what we're going to find out today from our guest, Cedric Crumbley. And let me introduce you to him. He went into the Army when he was still a teenager. Well, that's going to be a whole different story than I've been able to tell so far on the show. So after 20 years in uniform, he hung up his boots and started a new chapter in life. So we've got the background of something, you know, like how he made that choice to go in the Army, but then to be ensconced in it for so long and then to leave a whole 20 years behind and move out into the world. He says one of his biggest thrills was being retired at a young age, and he's taken up what he's learned and is now the author of Proven Sales and Recruiting Methods. So welcome, Cedric. I'm so happy that we get to share some time together. Thank you for coming on.
Hi, Doreen. Thanks for having me. It's an honor to be on your show.
Yes. Well, let's see. I'm curious, where did you grow up?
So I grew up in a small town called Albany, Georgia.
That's why you have such a wonderful accent.
Thank you. You always make mention of my accent. That's pretty cool.
I know. I love it. I love it. So Albany, Georgia, and there you are. Which child were you?
So I'm the oldest of two. I have a younger sister, and so I think I was 13 before my sister was born. So for a long time, I was the only child for a very long time.
Yeah, and so when a little sister comes into your life, it's almost like at 13 years is almost like having your own child.
Yeah, and funny you say that. I always call her, "Hey, baby," because to me, I hope maybe she'll hear this or not, but yeah, to me, she is like a child to me. She's like my child. I mean, I love her dearly. She's my sister, but I treat her like she's my child. Yeah.
Oh, that is so special to hear. Yeah, that's nice.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, you were the only child, and 13, you're just starting high school. Say a little bit about growing up first in Albany, Georgia, you know, like the first couple of years.
So I had an interesting childhood. My dad actually passed away. I think I was like 1 year old. And so his brothers and sisters, they treated me like I was like gold, right? Because when they saw me, they saw their brother. And I got treated special on my dad's side. And they always made me feel, I mean, even my cousin would say, they treated you better than they treated us. So I got this special treatment from them. So growing up, it was different for me. I always felt special when I was around my dad's siblings, and to this day they still treat me like that. However, growing up, I was a little bit odd. I don't know why, but I always looked at the world different. One thing I did, I read a lot of my mom's books. My mom is a nurse, and I read a lot of her nursing books, and it made me question a lot of things. And I think part of the reason why I was odd, I would use words, and some of the students would kind of make fun of me, some of the words I was using.
Like big words?
Big words. I guess people would call them big words. And also, it was just the way I viewed the world. I just viewed the world as a happy place, and not everybody views the world as a happy place. You know?
Well, you must have had maybe some form of religion, because that's, I mean, with a father that had disappeared before you could even almost walk. I mean, you probably didn't even know what a father figure could be except for through your uncles.
Correct. Right. I had no idea what a father figure is until my mom met a man by the name of John Shaw, who became my stepdad. And he's the only father figure I ever known. And he just believed I could do anything. And even when I got older, I would get into trouble and he would be like, man, you're gonna be all right. You said you're Crumbley. And I'd be like, what? But I would overcome it. I'm like, dude, you was right. He just has, I don't know why I can do anything. So
Well, it's
that kind
wonderful
of
to
happened.
hear that there is some real positive influence because naturally it seems like who you came into this world to be,
Mhm.
is what we're talking about, that you have an essence, a core of bright spirit. Uh, and he, even though that might have been a challenge to not have a father, what age did Mr. Shaw come into your life?
I think I had to be like 7 or 8 because he always brings up the fact that we were wrestling. And he always say, man, you would never give up. And I would say, I give. And you would say, give nothing. And he said, I always want to keep wrestling. So I think I was like 7 or 8 when he came into my life.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good time. But it feels like your personality was already formed. And that's what I said a second ago. I know, you know, spirituality, religion is a real strong force to help you cope and believe in yourself. Was that any strong influence there?
Oh, definitely. Because I didn't have, like a biological father. So I looked at God and said, hey, will you be my father? And so I just would follow God, like, hey, you be my father then. So yeah, it's kind of funny you hit. Nobody has ever connected that, but yeah, it's pretty what happened. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, this is exactly what I was looking for. Our conversation is just to go back and forth and see what comes up spontaneously like this. So there you are, 13, 14, 15, 16, you're in high school. Say a little bit about high school.
So high school, funny you should bring it up. So something strange happened when I was in high school. I believe it was between 10th and 11th grade. I was tired of being tall and skinny. And I came home one day and I told my mom, hey, I'm tired of being tall. She kind of looked at me like, okay, what do you want me to do? And so seeing my mother kind of look at me like that, I actually went to my room and I prayed. And I don't know if there's anything you can do about me being tall, but I made up my mind, okay, I want to get more muscle. I want to get bigger. And I prayed for it. And I came across a bodybuilding book by a guy by the name of Joe Weider. Come to find out he was the mentor to Arnold Schwarzenegger. So I followed this book to the letter. And he was like, just increase your weights by 2.5 pounds. And I did it. And I think I started with like maybe 120 pounds. Then I moved up to 135 pounds. And before I knew it, I was bench pressing 225 pounds. And I gained all this muscle. And people started making compliments. And I go to school when school starts back. And I remember one of my female students female classmates made a comment. Man said, you ate your Wheaties over the summer, huh? I'm like, yeah, I sure did. But what that did for me, I don't know, like a light bulb went off and it's affected me ever since that, you can take a book and you can change your life. You don't have to stay where you're at. If you want to change at any time, you can just pick up a book, a course, anything you want, and you can just change your life. But I went from there, even though I was bigger, I still struggled with self-confidence and the mental. And I figured out, okay, you know how to get big and get muscles, but can you do the same thing with your mind? Can you, instead of bodybuilding, is there such a thing as mind building? And so I started picking up books and learning all this knowledge. And lo and behold, found out knowledge actually compounds. Just like I did the weights with 2.5 pounds, went from like 120 pounds, go to 225 pounds. And I don't mean to fast forward too much, but I got to the point where business people started coming to me for advice and started paying me for advice.
Yeah. Well, that's that example that you just gave and then related it to how you just did little bit of weight increasing over time is really a powerful message to listeners, is that if you are struggling, just pick up a book, go to the Google, find something that's calling out to you. And for you, you said confidence was something you struggled with, and it had to do with your body, tall and
Yes.
lean. And so you started a whole process of change. And that's what I'm hoping people can take today also, is just the way that you model that change is possible, and you don't just flip a switch. You have to build muscle over time. You have to, the brain has to acquire knowledge a little bit over time. Well, how come you made the decision at that age to go into the military? What was that about?
A couple things. My mom actually reminded me of this recently. So I was planning on, I had already got accepted to college. Well, I looked at all my relatives going to college and they were not finishing. And so I was on my way and I was still going to go. And I was talking to my mom about, hey, I'm about to go make some money right now. And my mom said, wait, baby, hold on, slow down. You don't make money in college. You're in there for 4 years, you're not making money, you're learning. Well, I always wanted to make money. I'm like, that don't make no sense. I graduated high school, I'm ready to go make some money. My mom's like, no, you don't make money in college, baby. You're there to study. And so that kind of deterred me. I'm like, well, I really don't want to go because I want to go make some money. And I wasn't always, let me see. Today, I'm a little bit different than I was as a teenager. I was a little bit more mischievous and I got into some trouble. And I talked to a lawyer and I told the lawyer, hey, if I go into the military, you think the judge would be easier on me? And so he was like, yeah, sure, of course. And so there I am standing in front of the judge, and I never wanted to go into the military. I'm sorry, I just really didn't want to go to the military. But I did not want to face whatever was in that judge's mind. I said, hey, I'm going, no, the lawyer approached the bench and talked to the judge, whisper in his ear. And the judge said, so you plan on going to the military, young man? I'm like, yeah. And he said, ask me something else. And I said, yeah. And he came out and said, do you think they're going to give you they're going to teach you to be more respectful? Or I said, yes, sir. I got what he was telling me. I kept saying, yeah, he wanted me to, and I said, yes, sir. He's like, okay. And he let me go scot-free from whatever mischievous thing I did. But going into the military, I went into the Army, and that's where it really changed my heart. I learned about service. I learned about people. I learned about different nationalities, and I learned about leading people. And it really changed me as a person. I'm very grateful to the military for that.
Yeah, well, 20 years. Before I go further and ask you a couple more things that are on my mind, I'd like to go back a little bit, because you were talking about voice. And when you think about yourself and having a voice or not having a voice, during all those earlier years that you've just combed through, what comes up about your voice? What do you have to say?
So voice, I have to credit a guy by the name of Ted Drummer, who you know, the LinkedIn expert. So while I was in the military about to get out, I was looking at LinkedIn and all these social media channels. And I was so nervous about what to post on LinkedIn. And I asked Ted, how does this LinkedIn and social media stuff works? And this is where we get into voice. And Ted asked me, well, when you ever been to a networking event? I'm like, of course. He like, and what do you do there? I mean, do you just give your business card to everybody, or do you take time to talk to people and tell a story? I'm like, yeah. He like, Cedric, these are just people. They're not robots, they're people. And so Ted taught me to share my voice, my authentic self. Well, because I was in the Army at the time, I kind of felt like people looked down on military. And Ted like, no, Cedric, you have a very unique story. You need to share that story with people and they would love it. So sure enough, I just started sharing my vulnerabilities, sharing things I've been through, just sharing my story. And oh my word, people started going crazy. And I'm like, really? Y'all really want to hear this stuff? So just being my authentic self, that's the only way I know how to put it. I just, that voice, my voice is just me.
Well, my sense is even up until when you first entered the military and even you, whatever mischievous thing that you did, but for me, my sense of you growing up is that you had a voice.
You think so?
Well, the way that you're talking about your spirit and yourself and teenagers and little kids don't really have so much power in this world,
Right.
but because voice is also something we hear in our heads,
Oh, I see.
and
I
that
see.
you heard something about hope and possibility. And
Mm.
to me, that's what I feel like. It wasn't a struggle for you to find your voice until you later in life, where you had to use your voice to do
Mhm.
what you wanted to do, which is business. And even
Right.
that's well, I don't want to go to college if I'm not going to be able to make money right away. I mean, that was a voice that you listened to inside of yourself. And so it
Right.
set you on that other path along with,
Yes.
you know, whatever the judge had to do with that. But so later, here you are coming out more full. I mean, in the military, it still feels like it could be, I don't know, kind of like a suit that you're wearing, an image, a
Yes.
role that you're
Yes.
playing. And then
Yes.
out of the military, it's just like, okay, here I am. Who am I? And what do I have to say? And what do I want? And how do I say it in this world? And where am I going? There just seems to be so many questions. And you say you read using quotes for those who aren't seeing this, who are just listening, air quotes. You retired, and I'm not sure those
Yes.
really were quotes, but what does
I
that mean?
retired. Oh, it's so cool. And so I served 20 years in the military and I retired at the age of, I was either 38 or 39, and I started getting a pension from the military. And so that's good and bad because I found out when you retire at, like, let's just say 39 years old, that's not normal in today's society. When you just walking a dog around the neighborhood, everybody's like, this guy, is he like a bum or what? He just walking around with this dog. And people always ask, what do you do? And at first I would just say, hey, I'm retired. But then the question, if they look at you, they're like, retired from what? and you have to explain, I'm retired from the army. And they're like, the younger crowd, they think it's the coolest thing ever, because that's what they want to do. They want to retire in their 30s. But I had a neighbor, he's right down the street. He's in his 70s and he was walking his dog and he had been dying to ask me, excuse me, sir, what do you do? And I'm like, I'm retired. He's like, retired from what? I'm like, from the army. And he's like, how old are you? I'm 39. Young man, I'm 70 years old. I'm supposed to be retired. I am retired. You're in your 30s, you need to go get a job. I mean, he was really upset. And I'm like, seriously? And so even my wife, she didn't want to tell people I would retire because I would drop her off and I would just sit in the parking lot and read a book because I didn't have really anywhere to go. And so lo and behold, my wife lost her job. And so even though I was consulting at the time, I had clients, my wife asked me, hey, what are we gonna do? If you lose a client, what are we gonna do? Because I no longer have a job. I'm like, I'm okay, I'll just get another client. She wasn't okay with it. I'm like, are you serious? She's like, yeah. So I went out and got a job. So
Well, partly that man, the neighbor, was like an angel who woke
yes.
you up and said, there's more. You have more to do here, fellow, on this earth.
Yeah. And I know you want to talk about boy, but I gotta tell you. So I've spoken. I mean, people have paid me to speak. People have paid me to help improve their business. People have paid me to write. I published a book. When I got a job, that's the only time my wife has told me she's proud of me. I'm like, are you serious? Are you serious? Everything I've done, I get a job and you tell me. She's like, well, you're too young to retire, babe. I'm like, so, yeah.
Well, then let's tell me about the book.
So the book is Proven Sales and Recruiting Methods. So that's Ted Padromo. I'm bringing him up again. He don't like me to give him a lot of credit, but I didn't think I had a story. He asked me, hey, so tell me your story. And I told him how I started out as a recruiter and I didn't know how to sell. I was so bad that a young lady walked in. She wanted to join the Army, but after talking to me, she decided not to join, right? That's how bad I was. I was just absolutely terrible. But within, I think, a year or so, I became one of the top recruiters in that area, right? And so after telling Ted that, he was like, dude, you need to write a book about that. And so I was still serving in the Army and I was still recruiting and selling and doing all this stuff. So I wrote the book as I was doing it every day. So the book gets published and recruiters grab the book and they're following it step by step, similar to what I did with the bodybuilding book. And they're writing me like, I just made my quota, thank you. I just made mission, what they call it. And thank you. And then I started getting letters, emails and from people in the book, and they said they had the same results. I thought it only worked for military, but business people started picking it up and started writing me that, hey, they're getting results. So it's kind of cool.
It's very cool. Very cool. Yeah. Well, coming to the end of our time together today, darn it feels like we could just keep on dancing around here with ideas. And what would you like to communicate to the listeners today about voice?
I would say everybody has something special about them. Even if you were like me, didn't think you had anything to value to add to the world. I believe everybody has something in them. And I think life kind of nudges you to try to get you to find that specialness. And I think it's up to us to listen to that, like you call it, that voice, and take heed to it and take action to dig that gift out of us and present it to the world. And your life would change today. Like you say, find your voice, change your life. It's really true.
Wonderful. Well, how do people find you, Cedric?
Best way is LinkedIn. Go LinkedIn, type my name, or you can just also on Amazon, type my name in Amazon, Cedric Crumbley. But LinkedIn is the best way to connect with me. And I would love to help people. Yeah. If I can.
I know, and I can hear that love inside of you radiating out. Thank you so much for joining me and my audience today.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Take care.
Thank you for being with us today for this episode of Find Your Voice, Change Your Life. Each person during interviews shares what has helped them find their voice. You can learn from these guests and find your voice so you can be confident to speak up and speak out. And remember to download Doreen's free 7-step guide to fearless speaking at doreen7steps.com. We hope you enjoyed the show and will return next time. Until then, goodbye for now.